Today we ask the age-old question, EcoMofos, how well does it solo? Let's break it down. Well, hi, hello, everybody. My name is Turk. Welcome back to the Grouch Couch. Around here, we do all different kinds of solo RPG things. That's right. Today, my friends, we're checking out and doing an even deeper delve into EcoMofos. That's right. Recently, I actually did a full overview of EcoMofos, just talking about the game, what to expect from it, a little bit of the rules and everything else like that. But in that video, I talked about how much I enjoyed the game and how I really wanted to spend some more time with it. So today, my friends, we're actually going to do an example of play, a little bit of a one-shot, just to see how well this thing solos. I think it has some fun mechanics and also some that I'm not so sure on, and so that's why I think today's video is going to be perfect. So an example of play today for EcoMofos, and I think this actually would be helpful if you're trying to learn the rules yourself before you go and do a group actual play, as well as soloing it yourself, all right? Of course, big shout out to the creators of this thing because they did actually send this to me along with the solo zine and a couple of bookmarks, stuff like that, for the purposes of actually making some content on it, all right? So big thanks to them, but all of my opinions will remain my own. Thanks to all you guys, the Couch crew members. Thank you so much for dingle supporting the show. I really do appreciate you. That's right. If we run into any NPCs today, we may use some of your names for naming those NPCs. So I really do appreciate you, and just thank you so much for keeping this dream alive. Thank you. Now, EcoMofos also, they have like a recent expansion coming out, like a Waterworld-esque looking thing kind of going on. It's very cool. I think the backer kit thing has ended, but you might still be able to pre-order or whatever. I don't have my hands on that. Maybe eventually. All right, maybe eventually. But for now, I think that's the end of the jibber jabber. So, to the top-down camera. Here we are with EcoMofos. Now, in today's episode, I'm not going to go over exactly how every single rule works, just the ones that we actually use while we play. If you want to know how every rule works, do check out that overview video. It will be in the end title card if you like, and as well in anywhere else that I can find to put it. But for the purposes of today's episode, we've actually already made a character. Yes, we have. I made Fire Panic, the Pyromancer, and I rolled up all of his stats and everything else. He has a couple of gear options here. We've got the wrist crossbow, some flame arrows, and I think they are flammable arrows. We also have the flame retardant jacket. It's going to give us +1 armor. We got some goggles, a book of matches, and a pack of smokes. The Pyromancer starts with a key item that is the glowing orb. And in this game, you can, if you're a freak character, you can actually consume glowing orbs to get 2 starting spells. We got Flame On, which actually allows our hands to produce a liquid that is flammable, allowing us to light our hands on fire. And we also have Summon, where we can open a little portal and summon something, and then we'll actually make a luck check to see if it'll obey us or not. And I thought that would be fun for a fire character to summon like a little demon, flammable imp kind of guy, flamed imp. Could be fun, but there's more about spells in this book. To cast a spell, we actually have to make a will check, which is our lowest stat, and if we fail, we might cast something else instead, or chaos magic might happen. All right, so we'll see how much we actually use these dang old spells. Now, also as a Pyromancer, we get the ability we can risk a burden to manipulate a great fire. A candle-like flame can be summoned at will, and we are immune to fire. So if there's a great fire, or if we set a great fire, we can risk a burden to mess with it. Also, we can summon a little candle at will, and we are immune to fire. Now, there's one other thing we must discuss. In this game, you roll a d6 for your HP, and then that kind of determines your class, and you roll on that class. But playing solo, this game's a little bit dangerous, especially if you'll end up with 1 HP, because every time you take damage to your strength after the first time, you have to make a check, or you're just out for the count, right? So I actually rolled 2d6 for our HP, and I just picked my class, all right? Which has ended us up with 7 HP. Now, in this game, there's also companion rules. And you could just make a basic companion. I rolled up their name and got Stone Taker. So I imagine it is like a little stone guy, maybe, some kind of mutant fully made of stone, kind of like Colossus-esque is what I imagine in my mind. And then you just roll up their stats like normal, but they only start with 1 piece of gear. And anytime you want to ask them to do something risky, they actually make a will check. And if they succeed, they won't do it. So thankfully, I put his lowest stat in will, thankfully, all right, which is only a 6. It was a 3. I realized I forgot to put the +3 because all your stats are a 3d6 d6 plus 3, except your luck is a d6 plus 6. Okay, that's it for characters. I do want to say, going through this book, making the character a little bit, there's a lot of pages. I was just going back and forth this morning like crazy. I don't know. I was like, what in heck? I had to double check a couple things a few times. So I think that this game is really cool. Some of the rules, though, I think have a learning curve to them, but I think it's one of those things where once you know it and you've got it down, it's like gonna just be the easiest thing ever, right? But you got to get there first. Now, this game uses I keep saying now. I need to quit saying now. I need to quit doing that. Anyways, this game uses kind of like a point crawl, hex crawl kind of thing. And even in the solo rules, it encourages you to do that. And it does this to have kind of a little bit of exploration and kind of keep things a little bit fine-tuned while you're playing the game. And I like a good exploration or hexploration for solo. It's like procedurally generating each location you go into and then interacting or reacting to whatever's happening there. I like it a lot. The way that they have it organized took me a few read-throughs to kind of wrap my head around it, and I'm still not sure if I absolutely got it down. But that's why we're going to do a full-on example of play today. So we have our procedure here. We can see that the maps are also exampled over here as well. The way that this works is if you're playing a long game, basically, you're going to have one of these maps is going to be worth of a week's worth of travel. So each location might take a few days to get through or get from one place to another. It's kind of like big overland travel. And then we zoom in a little bit and we have a day's worth of travel, which will then represent a second map. And that day's worth of travel, you'll go from place to place. So imagine we're on one of these circles, and within that circle is this hex map, which we're going to go through, maybe going from, town to town. So this is like city to city. And then we've got neighborhood to neighborhood. And then we've got on another little tiny circle, we have house to house. So we're actually going inside of those houses and everything else, right? And if you're going to do a big long game, you'll actually manage each one of these different locations. And these are kind of just full on example little maps. They actually have a procedure for making your own and actually rolling up everything else. And it is over here on the fast start way to play. And for today's example, though, we're just going to be using the day and hour map, basically. So I'm going to choose one of these for us to start at, and then we're going to start generating and reacting to whatever's happening inside of that location. And one thing I did want to point out, I was confused by it in the rules, but as we can see here, it says if it's marked on the map, a hazard is an exclamation point and loot is a question mark. The question mark for loot is actually incorrect. The question mark isn't on any of the maps. In fact, over here on the key, loot is actually marked as a money symbol. So I don't know why loot is marked as a question mark there. It's very odd to me. And there was a couple other small little things like that I've noticed when I was making through my characters. I think this game could have absolutely used like a couple little bit more like playtesting or something. So there's stuff like that a little bit scattered through. There's like a couple of places where you could use a spell to regain wisdom, but this game doesn't use wisdom. It uses will. So I don't know why wisdom was actually even in that spell slot. So there's just a couple little tiny little nitpicks like that. But as you can see here, I actually went in with a pin and I marked money symbol, not question mark symbol. So in the future, when I ever come back to this game, I can remember and go, oh yeah, okay. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start the procedure. We have our character. I've kind of gone over it a little bit with you guys so you understand what the plans are. And we're going to just start generating and just start reacting to stuff. My hope is to get through 3 or 4 maybe circles today and my example of play. Every time I sit down to do a solo actual play, and I've explained this a couple times in the Solo RPG Academy, but every time I sit down to play, I like to do 3 to 5 scenes every session that I play. It's been a good balance for me, a good mix. And so I like to translate that to hexes or point crawls or anything else. I like to do 3 to 5 hexes or scenes whenever I sit down to play. So hopefully that's what we're going to get through today. And if this video here gets 200 likes, I'll actually come back and we'll do an episode 2 of this here actual play. If you enjoyed a lot, if you like what this game is, just make sure to hit a like on it, all right? And also, by leaving a like, it lets me know that this format is something that you enjoy as well, so I can do this more with other games, right? How well does it solo? I think that's a fun little format for me to do these examples of play after I do the overviews as well. And I do want to say, if you missed the overview video, the book itself actually contains procedures for solo play, but they have a separate zine you can buy that makes it a little bit more simple. It's almost the same exact stuff in the zine, but it's just condensed a little bit so you can keep it beside you, right? And on this, basically, you take a job and then you go through your hex crawl. And all of the yes or no questions are actually based on your skill checks. We know yes or no questions playing solo, right? It's pretty common stuff. Instead of rolling 1d20, you actually roll 2d20 as a save against the world. The dice represent both the circumstance behind the luck, circumstance and blind luck. luck. We compare the 2 dice against the relevant ability score for asking a yes or no question, which is kind of odd to me. For asking a question about the world, how would it be relevant to one of our skills? But before I judge it too hard, we're gonna test it, right? Anyways, this is a roll low system, so a 1 on either dice is an automatic yes and a 20 on either dice is an automatic no but. On a 20 and a 1, you get a yes and no but together. Chaos ensues. They're like, yeah, it's wild. Just lean into it, basically. No is a negative result and yes is a positive result, but introduces a twist. And then it has full explanations down here. Fail to beat your score, match your score, etc. All right. And it kind of works the same with NPC interactions as well. We roll against the world whenever we meet a new NPC, and it'll actually tell us what they are. But also in this book, there is, if you don't like that system, there is a roll chart for meeting NPCs and their initial disposition towards you. But I don't remember what page it's on. This book has a lot of pages in it, and I kind of been like, that's what I was struggling with in the beginning. Like, I just kept checking the table of contents, which I'm so thankful they included this, because without it, man. And it's a pretty good table of contents. There it is. 52, reaction, as we can see here. And reaction is just a 2d6 roll. We've got it right there. It ranges from hostile all the way up to helpful. Okay, I think that's basically the gist of it. We also have the Oracle, which is basically our solo engine here, our game loop. Observe, resolve, act, conclude, and leave evidence, which we might go through a little bit as we play. But one of the important things here is that we actually have a consequences d6 oracle right here. So if we fail a roll and don't know what the consequence should be, we can actually roll on this here d6 chart here. Okay, so we're going to pretend that we're on a day scale, all right? Or even, I think a day scale, because our scale is kind of like going inside of a building and then you're exploring that building, right? So we're going to pretend that we're on a day scale. So we've just arrived somewhere, all right? And I think our character, Fire Panic. Recently, I think we were a part of a glade in this world. Is kind of like your home area where you're trying to rebuild everything. But I think something happened to our glade, and I think it even says it in the quick start rules. Your glade has been destroyed for one reason or another. Something happened to our glade, our home base, and so we got kicked out of there. We no longer have a safe place to be. So we've been traveling and wandering, right? And we arrived to this point of interest where we are, and that's kind of where our story is going to begin. And if we meet an NPC, something like that, they might give us a job. We might try to go through a job, right? I think you could even just start with the job. There's also a roll chart to roll, I think it's a D4 to figure out how your glade was destroyed for a quick start. So you can keep that in mind when you guys play if you want to, all right? So the first thing to do is to roll a D20 for our environment. But first we must roll the terrain, all right? So what kind of terrain are we in? And you can see right here, there's a terrain for a D6. So we're gonna roll that first. That's a 4, wilderness. All right, so now we're gonna roll a D20 for the environment. There's a 13. And now we're going to come over here to the wilderness. It goes wastelands and then wilderness. We're actually going to bookmark this. So we're not going to go back and forth. Thankfully, the creators actually sent me 3 bookmarks, and I've actually been using all of them in the same book because I go back and forth so much. Okay, we've got a 13 on our environment for this wilderness. And 13 is a path through scrubland of tangled bramble and gorse. So we're walking up a path through the wilderness. I'm trying to imagine what kind of wilderness it would be. To me, wilderness, says kind of like forestry kind of area, because wasteland is like another section, which is like deserty area. So I'm wondering if jungly, or I'm thinking lots of pine trees, maybe kind of forestry. So we're walking up a path through some forestry. That's where we're at. And that is going to be our first. We're just going to use this. Which one do I want to use? Let's use the B table, actually. So if the circle is blank, that means it's kind of a safe-ish area. If there is ever an exclamation point, that means there's some kind of hazard or danger. And if there is a money symbol, that means there's some kind of loot to be found there. All right. So this first little circle that we're walking through here in the wilderness, because the green doors are entrance, the red doors are exit, is a safe area. So we're walking up the trail here. But as we're walking up the trail, we actually roll 1d20 for the feature, which is right next to the environment. That is a 5. Ooh. The floor we're walking on is basically a carpet of moving centipedes. That's awful. Fire Panic. What does Fire Panic sound like? I like to do roleplay in all my games as well, as best that I can. And I absolutely chose Fire Panic because I'm really in X-Men mode right now, because in 3 weeks we're starting Solo Superhero September, and I'm doing a whole superhero month just full of superhero stuff. So the mutant thing just right in my head right now. But I'm so much so imagining him like friggin' Johnny Storm, Fantastic Four, even much so because his burden that he got, his starting burden, is actually vain, which means he wants people to see what cool shit he can do at all times. Anyways, I think he turns to Stone Taker and he's like, whoa, dude, look. The floor's like moving. Watch your step. So many centipedes around here, dude. And Stone Taker's like, yes, there is. Because he's totally Colossus. Anyways, moving on. If marked on the map, we roll for each hazard, which we do not have, and we roll for loot, which we do not have. But if hazard is marked on an adjacent point on the map, we roll for that hazard now to see signs of the hazard we're about to run into. So if we're using this here, B1, the next section does indeed have a hazard and it has loot. So now we can actually roll for the hazard that we're going to run into in the next section. And hazard is right here on this next roll chart. That's a 3. 1d3, service droids. They're self-aware, but they fear humans. So as we're walking up this trail, maybe we can hear the service droids talking to themselves. They're self-aware, but they're talking. Do I have my voice mod on? I totally do. I have feeling. I must do something for myself. It is me, Droid 2. I must also do something. Who built us? What is life? I am Droid 3. Is there an afterlife? I am having an existential crisis. Self-aware droids. So funny. This game, to me, it's got comedy written all over in it. So like, even though it's, apocalyptic wasteland, kind of a depressing setting, it's still just written full of comedy. And I love that. So service droids that are self-aware and are scared of humans. Distant noise. So there's also some kind of loot over there. So we might be able to make a skill check. And if we succeed on that skill check, then I will roll on the loot chart. All right. But not until then, because then I might, as a solo player, I might want to place it somewhere or something like that. Like we can see it and we got to find it and get it, which you could also do, but I kind of want to roll on it later. So now that we know what our upcoming hazard is, on terrain, we roll a d20 for the encounter that we'll encounter here on the day or night encounter. But if we roll high, there's no encounter here at all, which I like. So it's like a 50-50 chance. So if we go to the next page here, that's weather. We have the day and night encounters for the wilderness. And I'm going to assume that it's in the day. So let's go ahead and roll a day encounter. What do we encounter here up this path before we reach the hazard? There's a 4, which is 1d3 faction members. Ooh, roll for faction. Oh, okay. Is there a faction roll chart to decide which one it is? Because we have the faction rules in here. Roll faction. Okay, we do have something underneath the random encounters. We have faction here, and I hope it includes all the factions for the random encounters. It does not. Okay, but there are 4, so that's good. There's Waster factions, Corpo factions, Bandit factions, and Punk factions. So let's roll a d4, and then we'll roll on the subsequent chart, or subsequent page, because there is no chart. There's a 4, which is the Punk factions. And on this page, we have 3 Punk factions. So we'll roll a d3. And I actually do have a d3. It's this weird little red dice right here. So let's roll this d3. That is a 2. So the Liberation Appreciation Society, an intrepid, diverse group of punks searching for the perfect inebriating concoction and the adventures that come along the way. The perfect booze is what they want. Jealousy, guard secrets from profiteers, but firm friends once trust is gained. Reckless as hell, fueled by juice. Unconventional thinking, fueled by gathered psychopaths. Then they have 3 different goals here. Let's roll a d20. Maybe we can get what their current goal is. Because actually, find a bandit stronghold or discreetly supply a waster band with droid parts, and they're looking at these droids. We're right next to them, right? So maybe there's a relation here. Or to take down a corpo stronghold. I think I'm just going to choose here. We're going to go discreetly supply a waster band with droid parts. So I think we're going to walk up on them as they're looking out over these droids. As they turn around and see us, what is their initial disposition towards us? And as I said before, we have this roll chart here for NPC disposition to start, but I don't really like it because I'm like, what skill am I supposed to use? Maybe they see how cool and strong I am and they go, oh, strong guy. Not really a fan. So instead, we're actually just going to use the one from the book. Here we go. So this is 2d6. That's a 7. They are wary of us. And there is, how many did it say? D3 of them, right? 1d3 faction members. There is a lot of D3 rolls in this book, I've also realized. Even in my little tester before I started recording, there is a lot of D3 rolls. And I hate, because you're supposed to roll a D6 and you divide it by 2, right? That's what your D3 roll is. But I hate doing that because I'm like, what if I get a 5? And then you got a round and then whatever. So I literally went out and bought these D3s. So if you have a D3 around, you're going to need it for this game. All right. That's a 3. So there are 3 faction members here. And we actually have reactions here too, which I could have used. Frolicking, totally wasted, fun. So let's hit this D3 to see if they're camping, stalking, or scouting. That'll actually help us figure out their actual goal a little bit more. That is 3. So they're stalking. So they are in the bushes looking at these droids as these droids are talking to themselves. So as we approach, they're wary. But I think Fire Panic walks right up and he's like, yo, what's up, guys? How we doing? And I want to make sure we're doing this right. So number 6 would have been, if it's a faction encounter, roll for the faction on page 126. Did we do that right? 126 would have brought us to this roll chart, which I don't like because it doesn't include all the factions. There's 2 different faction tables. So maybe it's telling us it had to have been a opposing faction, but I like that we found some punks. So we're going to stick with that. If they're mentioned, use the relevant table to complete the situation. Number 7, entering into locations. Use the map tables for the layout at the hour scale. Traversing a whole map takes an hour at a slow pace. If it's a dangerous location, the party takes the time to do something. Roll a d6, and on a 1, there's a hazard. If a location is 2 or more maps deep, the marked exit of random map 1 leads to a stairwell or tunnel. Gotcha. So like that's if you're doing the hour scale, which currently we're on the day because we're traveling to wherever we're trying to go. So we could do the hour, but then the whole encounter would be in this forest. I don't want to do that. So they're stalking these droids. So as we approach, what's up, guys? My name's Fire Panic. What are you guys up to? Hello, Fire Panic. We are the Liberation Appreciation Society, and we are on the quest to get some droid parts. You see those droids over there? Oh yeah, I do, totally. Well, we've been stalking them for a while, and it seems that these droids have become self-aware. You see, we're a little weary of you, but if maybe you can help us out, maybe we can help you get to your next location, you see. Go out there and take out them droids for us. We need their parts, so don't hurt them too bad. Oh, 3 droids? Easy peasy. I don't actually know if it is. I have no idea. Oh yeah, I could do that. But as we look out over these bushes, we're gonna start back at the top and roll for the environment of that area because it will be our next location, which has a hazard and a loot thing. The first time I played through this, I actually found like a house of punks who gave us a job to go and do something. So this is kind of similar in a weird way, but it's actually not as good. So I'm sad that I didn't record my first example of play. I absolutely should have, because sometimes I'll test a system to see if it's even worth it to make a video, and it totally worked out. So we'll see. Anyways, the environment, we're rolling for next because we're moving into the next area. That is a 5. So a boggy marshland, and there are pools of fetid, stagnant water. So they're walking around in all this stagnant water. Maybe there's like a clear opening from the trees, and they're all just kind of walking around in there. For some reason, my brain immediately went Star Wars. All right, also featured. So on an 8, the feature here is that there's an elder NPC scratching out existence. So as we go past the bushes and we get closer, maybe these 3 droids have surrounded this elder NPC, this elder person. If marked on the map, roll for a hazard, which we can also do now for the first time. Let's do it. Whoa, that flew right out of there. 15. The hazard is electrical storm, ominous clouds and rising winds. So there's just like coming from the sky and hitting, I think all those little puddles of water are getting like electrocuted. So maybe the elder is actually trapped because he's surrounded by water. There's like a little moat of water around him. And on the outside, there's all these droids kind of wandering around with newfound self-awareness that maybe they got from this storm. Now, when it comes to loot, I think if we can save this old man, NPC character, it's not a man. I don't know why I said man. We'll roll for what it is. Maybe they'll give us the loot because it does say that this section has a little loot thing on it. So we'll do that. If there's NPCs, 163. Here we have it. Punk/NPC maker. He's elder. So we'll pull out our little card here so we can write down his information. I like using index cards a lot. I actually just started recently and I'm really happy with it. So D20 twice for name. We're always at the same time. 14, 15. So nickname, Professor. That's perfect. 15, Abdu, Professor Abdu. What is his demeanor? Then we have appearance, vibe, and feature, but we'll do demeanor first. 14, again, it is a femme professor. So it's a lady professor, just like I thought. Their appearance. Natural 20, they are, I did appearance instead of demeanor first. Whoopsie. But anyways, we'll continue on. Loud, and their feature is 11, lanky. Loud and lanky. Okay, 2 more. 8 and 9, their trade normally is that they're a trader. Cool. Background is that they're a punk, which it already told us. So then what is 9? They want friendship. And what is their tool? Cool NPC generator thing. Getting a lot of details from this. 19, their tool is obsession. And tool ranges from like force, it looks like powers basic. So I don't know what obsession is. Maybe it's like Professor Abdu is like a psi. I'm already thinking a psi character that can make people be obsessed over things. You know what I mean? Like that's their power. It's kind of what I'm already thinking. A psi character. Okay, so they're trapped, but they're kind of older. And if they're a psi character, they're probably like kneeling, like meditating in the center of this thing. And Fire Panic's like, oh shit, Stone Taker, do you see that over there? Looks like someone needs our help. Let's show show them how cool we are. Okay, we need to see if there are stats for the droids. The mofoing bestiary, here we are. I mean, really, no one says we have to kill these droids. They are like self-aware, you know what I mean? Especially because they have 12 HP. No, service droids. Cool. Thank goodness. They have 6 HP. They have electric touch. They are fragile humanoid robots typically used for mundane or repetitive tasks. This looks like the example photo. Love it. Self-aware, naive, but fear humans, which literally what we just got. So maybe it's always that way. And I just did a episode, I did Triple O, which a fantastic solo system, by the way. And it basically presents this mechanic called the Triple O mechanic, where you roll a d6 whenever you're trying to determine what a NPC character or someone might do, and it is the obvious action, the option action, or an odd action. And in my mind, I was thinking, so what does fire panic do? Like, should I roll for it? But in my mind, I'm forgetting, no, I am the player character, so I decide. Anyways, but it's a fantastic system, and if you're interested in that, I think the Corpse Run should have went up earlier this week. You should check it out. It's fantastic. Anyways, Fire Panic wants to show off he's vain, right? So we're going to lean into his burden. He's vain. He wants to get the parts for the punk. He also wants to save this punk who's stranded, right? So I think 100% he's going to say, all right, Stone Taker, let's get him. And because this is a dangerous situation, we actually need to make a will check with Stone Taker to see if he will join us in this combat. And if he gets under a 6, he won't join us, basically. That's a 5, dude, no way. I will stay out of this one. All right, fine. So maybe instead we're going to try to summon a demon. Let's try to use magic for the first time. Let's test out this system. Here we go. Spell casting. And I was a little confused by this. I had to read through it a couple times. But basically we started with an orb. And when an orb is absorbed, the recipient merely needs to clasp their hands or use a focus, such as a significant object, to channel their power. I was like, okay, cool. So we don't got to make a check to do it. But then also over here it says freaks. If we've gained an adaptation that grants us spells, we are considered a freak, and we can choose to only risk a burden against will to cast a spell, rather than receiving one automatically. Failure on the roll casts an additional random other spell simultaneously, acting as the GM's discretion, and inflicts d6 will damage on the caster, and essential chaos ensues. And it took me a while to figure this out, but if we absorb the orb, like the spells we've started with, we indeed do not need to make the check, at least this is the way I'm playing it. But as a freak, we start with an adaptation spell, which some of them do. So for us, it would be to control a large flame, which is what our adaptation spell would be. And it even says under that we can risk a burden when you go to it. So we learn 2 spells by absorbing the orb, like it says, and then we can risk a burden to manipulate a great fire, which would then be the freak's risk a burden power, right? So we can just do the orb power, and then there's more rules for other powers that we might want to try and do and stuff like that. But I was very confused by it, but that is the conclusion that I've come to. So we're actually going to try and summon a little demon, but it's still fun because we still have to do an action on top of that. So when we summon this little creature to help us fight, we have to roll, I'd say, a will check to try and get them to fight with us, right? It would either be will or it'd be luck. And I like the idea of doing a luck check. And in this game, if you fail a luck check, your luck goes up by 1. That is this game, right? I play a lot of games, you guys. I think that's this game. Yeah, whenever rolling against luck, your luck changes. If you pass, you lose a luck. If you fail, gain 1 luck. Luck returns to your starting ability after a long rest. Sometimes you will be invited to test your luck to see if the guard's looking away, if there's a turn in the weather, or any other amount of uncertainty. So this would be perfect for that. When this little demon shows up through this portal, roll a luck to see. And if we get under a 10, which is our luck, it will actually fight with us. That's an 18. So we flick our hands and this flaming portal opens and this little demon jumps out and we're like, yo, what's up, dude? Let's take him out. And he's like, ha, I ain't gonna fight with you. And he just runs off into the forest. And I think his little footprints leave like a fire trail as he just runs off and he's gonna just start burning things down. And we're like, shit. So that was kind of like our preparation turn. Now we need to take some kind of an action and begin combat. So we have our wrist crossbow, which is a d6 damage. These things have 6 HP. We can also do flame on to turn our hands into fire, which I don't really think is very relevant here. So instead, we use our wrist crossbow, or we could use flame on to bring our hands on fire, and our flammable arrows, we can light them on fire before we shoot them, which could give us like an extra d4 damage. I think that'd be cool. So let's do that. He goes, fine, I'll do it myself. Flame on. And his hands go on fire, and he pulls out his little crossbow, and he's like lighting up these arrows, and we're gonna start shooting them. That's kind of like a cool little thing we can do. All right, so in this system, you do not roll to hit. Thank everything. There's no rolling to hit in this system. You just block damage with armor, straight up. So we're gonna roll our d6 and our d4 to deal our damage, straight up. That is 6 damage. And he shoots it and hits the first one. And it's like, is there anything after this? What is that? And just as he says, what is that? The arrow hits him in the neck and it's like lights on fire and he goes and falls over into the water. And the other two go, I do not want to die. I don't know if there's anything after this. And so then they're going to try to attack us. They have Electric Touch, which does a d6 damage. And we have 1 armor, so we're going to -1 armor. That is a 1. It's cool. So it touches us, it hits us in the jacket, nothing happens as it runs over to us. I think at this point, the Elder is probably looking now, like looking at us. And the second one's going to try to do the same thing. Electric Touch. That is a 5, so we're going to take 4 damage. You see now why I gave myself extra HP? You see now why? That's going to, we'll do 7. We have 4 out of. Okay. At this point, we've taken out 1 of them. Let's roll a yes or no question, shall we? Just to test out the system a little bit. Do the 3 factions, punk guys, come to help us? All right. I think that they've seen how cool everything was. That just happened. Also, we failed our luck check, which means we get 1 more luck. I almost forgot about that. Let's go ahead and raise this up to 11. The relevant ability score, strength, dex, will, or luck. Maybe they've seen how strong we were in fighting, so we can roll against strength. Let's just do that, I guess. That is a 12 and a 5, which means we succeed with both. And there's actually a better chart over here in the book. That one's fine. But in the book, if we come back here to solo rules, we can actually see roll the oracle right here in this neat little table. And it has 2 fail, fail and match, pass and fail, pass and match, or 2 pass. And matches in this, you get critical hits whenever you match your stat, whenever you're rolling for it, which I think is kind of fun. Anyways, we have 2 pass. So we have yes and. They do come to help. Thank goodness. So, and means an additional positive outcome. So they jump over the bushes to come and fight with us, and the 2 droids that are still standing turn away from us to look at them now. They no longer are trying to fight us. So now we're going to let the 3 guys each take a turn. I think each one of them probably has some kind of a blunt, some kind of weapon of some kind. We're going to roll a d6 for each one of them as they run out and start bashing on these droids. So d6 for the first one. That's a 3. Nice. 3 damage to 1 droid. That's a 2, so one of the droids only has 1 HP left. And the last guy is going to attack with a full 6, so just completely takes 1 out. And one of them only has 1 HP left. I think it would be cool if we just turn and just grab the droid with our fire hand and just kind of like melt its circuitry now that we're right next to it. It's kind of really cool. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to roll our d4 damage to finish it off. Whoops. That is a 3 damage. So we finish it off and it melts. I think as that happens, we look over and we see this elder person standing there and they stand up. And as the droids die, maybe they were helping because they're like metal. They were like making the electricity storm like worse. So maybe it lets up a little bit. And the punks that we helped are going to start scavenging the droids and getting the parts that they want. And we're going to walk over to talk to Professor, this is why I wrote it all down, Abdu. And they are loud, lanky. Thank you so much for helping me. To be able to return the favor, I would like to offer you one of my items, as they just yell at us. Let's go over to loot and see what we get. Loot and stuff on page 60. Ingredients, concoctions, armor table, weapons table, stuff table, old table. And so this is a D6 chart in itself. Unique stuff and key items. So I don't think it'd be that. So let's roll a d6 first to see what they're going to give us, what chart, and then we'll roll on that chart. Wait, how is this set up? This is a d66. Is that what it is? It is. So it's a 3d6. It's a 666 roll chart. Cool. Love that. So 523 is what we got here. I'm just going left to right. We could also go 253. Let's compare. 5, that's literally a flamethrower. How perfect is that? Being that you are so awesome with fire, here's a flamethrower. Dude, sick! See, Stone Taker? I told you that doing cool shit would get you cool shit. Flamethrower. What the crap? It is 1d8 blast, so it does 1d8 and has 1d8 ammo. I mean, everything we have, it's like, besides the crossbow, everything does 1d8. 1d6 ammo. That's a 6, dude. Sick. Okay, at this point, we could probably persuade the old person, see if they want to join us, but I think they're just a trader, and I think I want to use them just as a trader, so he's going to be like, thank you so much, we'll trade with you in the future, and we're going to go back to the punks and be like, so, I'm just trying to get across over here, just trying to find somewhere to chill out. My glade was actually destroyed, and they're like, cool, well, we'll go with you. You helped us get this junk, so we'll walk with you for a little while, get you safe passage, which would then, hopefully I'm keeping all my bookmarks. Well, I am. Good for me. Bring us back to our next area, which is actually going to be a safe area. As you can see, it is a white circle, at which point we're going to roll for environment again, which is still bookmarked. So what do we stumble into? It's a 15. An area of deep woodlands, dank, quiet, and eerie. Something watches. So we have a nice, cool area to camp out at. And then we'll continue rolling and et cetera, et cetera. I think that was a good example of play. I think. A little bit. Little point crawl, doing it in scenes. Very interesting. My friends, that's the example I have for you today. I think we tested out all the systems I really wanted to test. I think this is 100% soloable. I do. How well does it solo? Really well. I'd give it, I got 78 out of 100, right? It's not perfect, but I'd give it a 78. I think it has everything that you need, but it's a little cumbersome because there's a lot, right? But thankfully, the rules themselves are really simple. Roll under, just hit crap. It makes things move really fast, right? And it does supply you with everything you might need, which I think is great. And the fact that you can do a full character sheet on an index card makes me really happy, okay? I'm going to keep these index cards with this book, and I might play it myself later. But again, if this video gets enough likes, we'll come back. We'll continue the series. We'll see maybe where the heck Fire Panic is trying to get to, and if he can get anywhere himself, right? Kind of neat stuff. I really enjoyed this. So first of all, thank you guys all so much for watching, and let me know what you thought about everything that happened today in this system yourselves in the comments. And if you're looking for some more insight into how to solo this game, maybe the Couch Crew already has your back, and maybe they've already left a comment that might help to guide you. All right? Thank you so much, everybody. Really do appreciate you. But for now, my friends, I say take a seat on the couch and roll for initiative, at least until you find yourselves fighting some crazy self-aware droids yourselves. Roll on that, weirdos. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Mackie. Bye-bye. See you later.